welcome to a brand new episode of Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tonight we will be taking our usual broad look around the DMV sports landscape. We, of course, must kick it off, as has become tradition the past few weeks, by saying goodbye, farewell to one of our teams, as the Baltimore Orioles will no longer be playing baseball in 2024. We're going to look at what happened and take a look ahead into the offseason to see what's on the horizon for the Birds, as they call them in Baltimore. We then, of course, must jump into football, where we've got tons of actually really good football news. A lot of winning in the DMV. It's a little bit of a foreign concept, but hey, you know, who's going to complain? I'll take it. We also now, given the time of year, have to start talking about hockey and basketball. That's right. We've had some, preseason games for the Caps, and we've had some discussions about the Wizards as well. So we will be touching on both of those teams, essentially out with baseball season, in with football, or in with basketball and hockey, as is tradition for the month of October. All while kicking off Fall Beverage and North Carolina Beer Month. We're going to talk about that here tonight with a option that I am personally super excited about. We've got all of that and more coming up on Let's Whine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And once again, good evening, everybody, and thank you for tuning in on this lovely Saturday night to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and who, for the past 10 years and counting, has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes and media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. If you have not done so already, please follow us on all social media platforms on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, all of the above at IE Sports Radio. You can also follow yours truly at Let's Whine _IESR. You can find that on TikTok, Instagram, and X. You can also listen to us live or later on in the week if you can't tune in on Saturday night. I completely understand. At all of the below options, we've got Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, whole bunch of different options. And like I said, whether you're listening live or listening later on in the week, it is all greatly appreciated. We thank you very much. Also, of course, you must visit our website, iesportsradio.com. There you will find our merchandise page. We've got hats, t-shirts, hoodies, starting to get a little bit cooler outside. I guess eventually, in some parts of the country, they haven't quite gotten there, but when it starts to get cooler, those hoodies are going to be really nice. So definitely check that out. You can check out all of the show pages. Yours truly is right here, but we also have show pages for all. I think we have over 30 shows now, and there's definitely multiple options for you. So you can check those out through the website. You can check out the blog through the website, iesportsradio.com/blog, but you can also check it out at iesportsradioblog.wordpress.com. You can check it out at both spots. And of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsors. And for a little bit of a better word, let's take a quick break so that we can hear a little bit more about those sponsors.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Jerky that's on a whole other planet. They have a whole wide array of flavors ranging from your classic, your barbecue, all the way up to your volcanic jalapeno, your Carolina Reaper, your really spicy stuff. So definitely visit them on Instagram at Planet Jerky, or check out their website, planetjerky.net. It's only about like 10, 12 bucks a bag, so really good price for some premium handmade jerky. Also, do check out Seal the Deal Wax Seals, the perfect little touch to your invitations, to your wedding, baby shower, fancy party, birthday, whatever it may be, holiday party. Got a lot of holidays coming up. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of the above. So do check her out at sealthedeal_wax seals. And you can also order direct from the IE Sports Radio website. We have a lot of sports to get to this evening, but first we must start with our beverage. Now, North Carolina or October actually overlaps two separate themes for beverages. The first theme, of course, is fall beverages. You know, we've got your Oktoberfest, your pumpkin beers, all of your really good fall theme, your fall flavors kind of culminate in the month of October here. But it's also North Carolina Craft Beer Month. So you gotta kind of cross the two over. I don't know why I haven't done this previously. I think I've done different themes that have kind of lined up with this. But in any case, we are going to cross the two and we are going to combine them into, it's a little bit of a long title here, but NC Craft Beer Fall Beverage Month. We're going to line the two themes up here in one. And we're going to start off with one that I am very excited about. So this is Bold Rock hard cider here. They're actually out of Virginia and North Carolina, but they've got a spot in North Carolina, so we're going to call them local. And they are a cidery. They do specialize in ciders, and this is specifically their limited edition, fancy apple crumble hard cider. Hard apple cider made with notes of cinnamon and brown butter, two very classic fall flavors, really kind of right in line with the fall theme. Only 4.7% alcohol, so this is one that you could have a couple of and not really feel guilty. Although looking at it is 160 calories per bottle. Started putting the health facts on some of your hard beverages. They even do that with wines now, I've noticed as well. And also 12 grams of sugar, so maybe not the best for the low sugar crowd out there, but it is gluten-free. So hey, for your gluten-free people, this one goes out to you. So let's crack this bad boy open. Always have a good handy dandy bottle opener with you, especially if you're a beer lover. And of course, we have to get the pour going. Now, cider, not as big a deal. Beer, obviously, you can get it can get a little bit ahead of you there with the foam and the head, so you got to be a little bit more under control. But for cider, not as much. Now, I have to give a little bit of a backstory of the glass here. So this says the Prancing Pony and says the Hobbit underneath it. So I have to give this a sniff really quick. Ooh, smells very cinnamony. Wow, that smells like fall. If you can imagine the smell of fall, that's probably the smell. So when I got married 10 years ago now, interestingly enough, IE Sports Radio was started 2 weeks before I got married. Fun fact. I wasn't part of it back then. I joined a couple years later. My wife surprised me on our wedding day by when we got to the couples table. There were two pint glasses on them, and they said this little prancing pony, because I am a massive Lord of the Rings fan, massive Lord of the Rings nerd. So that was her pleasant surprise to me on our wedding day, were these prancing pony glasses. I don't think we really drank much out of them that day, because when you get married, you're pretty busy. But I tried to keep them. One glass unfortunately did bite the dust a few years ago, but one of the two has made it through 10 years. So hey, maybe it's a good luck charm. I don't know. But in any case, yes, very beautiful looking cider here. Kind of got that golden amber color going to it. Like I said, smells like cinnamon, smells like fall. But of course, it all comes down to the taste, right? So let's give it a taste. That is really good. It tastes exactly like it's described. It tastes like an apple crumble. I mean, it's a hard apple cider, so it's already got the natural apple flavor that you're looking for at kind of its base. You just need to add a couple flavors in there to kick it up to the profile that you want, and that's exactly what they've done. It's simple. You get that cinnamon, you get that kind of bready butter flavor to it, and of course you have the apples. So yeah, overall, very nice beverage, very enjoyable, very drinkable, very fall feeling as well. So check. It definitely marks our a great start to the NC Craft Beer Fall Beverage Month. Yes, that is indeed a mouthful. Normally, this would be when we take our first break before we really dive into sports, but I think it would indeed be appropriate to go ahead and take care of yet another season ending farewell, as we have to say goodbye now to our Baltimore Orioles, who were eliminated from the postseason this past week. They had a best of three series hosting the Kansas City Royals. and they lost both games 1-0 and 2-1. It sounds like, I don't know, 1-0, 2-1. I don't know. It sounds like the golf scores, in the Ryder Cup, they beat them 2-1 or something. I mean, obviously it's baseball games and they're baseball scores, but offense just apparently didn't, decide to show up. Kansas City's pitching's really good, but the team had several opportunities to capitalize and get some runs on the board. And obviously, when you lose 2 games by 1 run, even getting 1 run across the board is significant, and they just simply could not do it. The only run that was scored was off of a Cedric Mullins solo home run in the second game. Otherwise, like I said, the bats were completely quiet. The pitching was phenomenal. They only gave up 3 runs in 2 games. A lot of Orioles Twitter was, criticizing certain pitching strategy decisions, but you only gave up 3 runs in 18 innings. I don't think the pitching is really the direction. They were like, oh, well, you shouldn't have pitched to Bobby Witt in this situation. You gave up this. Corbin Burns gave up 1 run in 8 innings. We should not be sitting here talking about how he pitched to Corbin Burns with a runner on base, or he pitched to Bobby Witt. We should be talking about how the team managed to put some daggum runs on the board and he got a win, a well-deserved win. But that's not the conversation we're having today. The conversation we're having today is that they are eliminated from the playoffs. This group, this current squad is now 0-5 together, majority together. A lot of the same players between last year's team and this year's team. But they are now 0-5 in the playoffs. And fun fact, the Orioles have lost 10 playoff games in a row dating back to 2014 since they swept the Tigers in the American League Divisional Series that year. They got swept by, go figure, Kansas City. Then in 2016, they lost the 1-game wild card that was instituted at the time, and then the sweep last year at the hands of the Rangers and the sweep this year. So playoffs continue to be a problem for the Orioles. And it's the next evolutionary step. They've done this rebuild. The products of these rebuilds have come up to the professional ranks, and now you have to capitalize on that. And this is the next evolutionary step for this team. Whoa, hang on. There we go. All right, so let's talk about the offseason outlook. Really, some major free agent decisions and salary cap decisions. The MLB doesn't have a salary cap. Every team kind of imposes their own. But several players with expensive player options, a few guys with potentially expensive arbitration contracts, the main one of which is going to be Cedric Mullins, who's in his final year of arbitration and estimated to come in right around the $9 to $9.5 million salary mark. Other guys in higher up arbitration that are going to get significant salaries. Adley Rushman's probably going to be in the 5.5 to 6 range. Ryan Mountcastle's probably going to be just over 6. Gregory Soto, who they acquired at the trade deadline, is projected to be in the 5 to 5.5 range. So that's going to be an interesting decision. His tenure with the Orioles started poorly, but he actually came on very strong down the stretch through the second half of August and through September. I think he only gave up, 2 runs in something like 11 or 12 relief innings in that stretch. So he came on very strong down the stretch. And I think he made a very good appearance in the postseason as well. But the biggest decisions kind of looming large, and these will impact the entire offseason, how that goes, are the pending free agent decisions for ace pitcher Corbin Burns and outfielder Anthony Santander. Both all-stars this year. Burns had a phenomenal season, the best season by a starting pitcher for the Orioles since Mike Mussina in the early 2000s, and some would even argue going all the way back to Jim Palmer. But yes, one of the best pitchers the Orioles have had in a while. They acquired him in this past offseason at a trade with the Brewers, knowing that he would have 1 year of affordable arbitration, and now they have to decide how much they want to offer him, if they want to offer him, the top of the market dollar, or how they're going to manage that. And then Anthony Santander, who's been with the team for several years now, of course, gets to his natural free agency, coming off a career year in terms of home runs with 44, 45. I forget if it was 44 or 45. Also had 102 RBIs. But as some people have noted, got off to a really slow start, got really hot during the hottest months of the year, and then cooled off when the temperatures cooled. So, and it's not uncommon for players to really take advantage of the summer heat when the air's a little bit thinner, the ball travels a little bit farther to start whacking some home runs. So that's a really interesting decision. What is his market value? He does turn 30, I believe. Let me double check that. But he's getting up there in age. How long do you want to sign him? Do you sign him to a higher dollar value, or do you kind of balance his offensive strengths with his offensive shortcomings? Defensively, he's actually pretty good in right field. It's actually one of the strange enigmas defensively in right field, because he's not particularly fast or agile, but he's got really good instincts and a strong throwing arm, and they kind of balance each other in this really interesting way. He is 29. He turns 30. He actually turns 30 in 2 weeks. So happy early birthday to Anthony Santander. 44 home runs, by the way, as well. So that's a really major decision. And I think those two decisions will have the trickle down effects on how they manage some of the player options, or some of the club options that they have for salaries. Guys like Eloy Jimenez, guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Cionel Perez, guys like that, and then some of the arbitration salary decisions as well. And if they become players in the trade or free agent market, obviously last year they were minor players in the market, making a couple smaller moves like signing Craig Kimbrell, which worked for the first half of the year, then kind of tapered off, but also making the big trade for Corbin Burns. So this team has shown a willingness to sort of dabble in that area, whereas obviously during the rebuild, they had no interest in trading for aces and signing free agents. But if they lose Burns, if they lose Santander, then you're going to have to do something to replace them, because there aren't. Santander, you might be able to make the argument that there are some natural replacements, although you try just casually replacing 44 home runs and 102 RBI. That's not the easiest thing in the world. But Burns, you're going to have to shell out in some way, shape, or form for his replacement, whether it be a free agent arm or a trade. You're going to have to pay a penny. So honestly, you might as well just go ahead and re-sign him. The team does have some reinforcements in terms of players coming back from injury next year. They expect starting pitcher Grayson Rodriguez, relief pitcher Felix Bautista, and utility infielder Jorge Mateo to all be back and ready to go by training camp, which will be a big help in several areas. Also, by mid-season next year, they're expecting the returns of starting pitcher Kyle Bradish and pitcher, probably at this point relief pitcher, I would describe him as Tyler Wells. So they've got reinforcements coming along the way, but it's not going to be everybody at once. And even still, you're not talking about replacements for Burns and Santander. So the major decisions do loom a little bit more of a complicated offseason for the Orioles than for the Nationals, who it's basically like a couple of guys are coming off the books. You re-sign all of your team control and early arbitration guys, which is the majority of the roster, and maybe you dabble, you throw a couple bucks at the free agent market. Much simpler for the Nationals than it is for the Orioles. The Nationals are also a team that has not been shy about spending, whereas the Orioles, basically since the ill-fated 2018 season, have been borderline like allergic to spending money, but new ownership, so that could possibly change. As for draft outlook, the Orioles are going to have a later pick. I think it's going to be in the early 20s, kind of like it was this past year. In terms of this, And in terms of potentially trading some excess guys, because I could see them making deals to move on from some of their veterans to allow the younger guys more playing time. The main names on that list would be Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Urias. But whether it be by that or by the draft, I think this is the time they need to start working on replenishing the pitching ranks, because Cade Povich will likely have a rotation spot next year, assuming that they don't go oddly crazy on the free agent market. And Chase McDermott's time will be here as well. So basically all of their top pitching prospects will be graduating to the team. Plus, they traded a couple at the deadline. So the pitching is not looking as strong in the minor league ranks. They have a couple of intriguing names, but there definitely needs to be a replenishment, especially if they lose out on Burns and they have to dip into the trade market in order to get a new guy. They're going to have to give up somebody like a McDermott, like some of their next level pitching prospects like Trace Bright and Justin Ambrewster and guys like that. So not as much to talk about there for the Orioles, but pitching needs to start. They need to start thinking long term on some of the pitching as well, because these guys are not going to all be around forever. In fact, decisions, obviously they've got the decision looming with Corbin Burns, but they're not far away from having to make decisions about Dean Kramer and some of these bullpen arms as well. That'll do it for the first part of our show. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to get into some more positive news. We're going to be talking some football. Don't go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's talk some football. That's right. And we've got a lot of positive football. But first, I have been slightly neglectful to shout out those in the chat room. We've got Ralph Calise, the host of the Yinzer Report, our Pittsburgh-based show. Let's Whine. We're not whining tonight, but we are drinking a cider, sir. So that sip and tip of the glass is for you, sir. We also have Jen B, have a great show. Thank you very much. The host of our Show of the Land, our Cleveland-based show. And we've got Adam Karnick. My condolences on the O's elimination. Thank you very much, sir. But now Ovechkin watch can begin in earnest. Yes, it can. We're actually going to talk about that in the last part of our show. But first, we must start with some football. And it starts on a really positive note. The Commanders faced off against the Arizona Cardinals this past week, and they won 42-14. Offense was on a roll, clicking on all cylinders. Everybody getting involved. Jaden Daniels, obviously, but Brian Robinson. No Austin Eckler, he was out, but Jeremy McNichols, the backup, he came in and performed very well. Also getting Scary Terry involved in the passing game. Luke McCaffrey was involved. Zach Ertz. Defense played great, just firing on all cylinders in this one for the Commanders as they advance to 3-1 on the season. Tell me if you had that in your NFL bingo card. I bet you did not. But yeah, I mean, everything looks good. The defense looked really good for the first time. I do have one negative. They did have to punt. I believe it was in the second quarter for the first time, or it might have been in the third quarter, for the first time since the fourth quarter of their week 1 loss to the Buccaneers. So unfortunately, that is something that happened. Sad to announce. But other than that, everything was going well. Jaden Daniels, like I said, he was just in complete and utter control, and everything they were doing is working. So, I mean, not only the shout out to the players who obviously played a great game, but shout out to the coaches for making those adjustments, continuing to make those adjustments after that week 1 loss to the Buccaneers, and really kind of improving this team over the last 3 weeks. Olamide Zacchaeus also had a great game as well. And like I said, the defense was firing on all cylinders. Deron Payne, Dorrance Armstrong, Jonathan Allen all contributed with sacks. Like I said, Tress Way, the punter, did have to punt once. And also shout out to Austin Seibert, the kicker. After all of the kicking issues we have they had entering the offseason, I don't think Seibert's missed an extra point or a field goal. I realize now I've jinxed it by saying that, but between the Giants game and then who did they play the previous week? The Bengals game, sorry, I had to remind myself, and the Cardinals game, I don't think he's missed a kick so far. Let's double check. Yeah, no, he's been on point. Although it's easier when you're not kicking field goals every drive. Oh yeah, yep. Adam Karnick caught me. Kicker jinx, I know. Well, if we're gonna jinx it, I'd rather jinx it in week 5 than in week 17. Okay, given where we stand. Jen B, of course, shout out. Austin Seibert was a Cleveland Brown previously, so she's cheering him on quietly, as of course I don't think she's really a Commanders fan. Although probably neutral being a Browns fan. But Adam makes a good point. What would you have given lower odds to? The Commanders leading the NFC 4 weeks in, or Vandy beating Bama? Probably Vandy beating Bama. I think I would still give lower odds to. In reality, the Commanders' schedule has not been impossible to start the year. And it's a little bit hindsight 2020 because I think we thought the Bengals were probably going to be a little bit better. And then the Bucks were probably the second best team on their schedule. A lot of people would have said through the first 4 weeks, and they lost to them. And then even the Cardinals, I would have expected to be a little bit better. So, I mean, not a terrible schedule to start for them either. And I actually realized I need to make a quick edit to a slide here. But yes, coming up week 5, the Commanders host the Cleveland Browns. Another team that's off to a rough start, but I never take a team like Cleveland lightly. Not only out of respect for Jen B, my co-host there, but also because every team is an NFL team. You're not playing, there's no FCS, there's no Division II in the National Football League. Every team is a professional team filled with professional players. On any given week, anybody can beat anyone. So do I look at this game? Do I feel positive about this game for the Commanders? I would say yes, I do. It's at home. Cleveland's off to a rough start, but They do have Nick Chubb, I believe, is coming back healthy, so that's a big deal. And they still have weapons on both sides of the ball to be concerned about. They have one of the best defensive players in the game in Myles Garrett. They still have a really solid offensive line. And like I said, you cannot treat any team lightly, um, and the Browns are no exception to that. Also, Gen B notes that they had a player-only meeting today, so that can lend one or two ways. They can either come out re-excited and rejuvenated, and we'll be on the receiving end of that excitement, or there's more problems in the ranks, and they won't come out as unified. Plus, very big note there that Nick Chubb, I thought Nick Chubb was going to be back. I saw reports that were kind of leaning possibly that way, but he is going to be out. So that's great news for the Commanders. So do I think this is a winnable game? Yes. Do I think this is a trap game? Also, yes. But I feel pretty good, especially after their performance last week, heading into this game. Part of it, whenever I do the season previews, which I realized I really didn't go super in depth with them this year, is I kind of, I have different categories, and really, it I get sometimes more nuanced with it, but I essentially break games into favorable, 50-50, and not favorable. Favorable, and the way I demark it is basically, do I think that they win this game 6 or more times out of 10? I would say, as the current state of these two teams, I do think I would mark this as a favorable game to the Commanders. But again, think of my mark. I only mark it 6 out of 10, which means I'm still giving it 4 times out of 10. I think Cleveland could possibly win this game. And then non-favorable would be, do they lose this game 6 or more times out of 10? And then 50-50 is exactly like it sounds like, it could go both ways. For example, the Bengals game, I think I probably would have rated that a 50-50 game based on where Cincinnati was at the time. Maybe even last week's game against Arizona also would have been a 50-50 game before the season. The better a team is, the more the games shift towards the favorable mark. Like, for example, for many years, I thought the Ravens were the better team than the Commanders. So the Ravens would have more games in the 50-50 and favorable category, whereas the Commanders would have more games in the 50-50 and the less favorable category. But it also evolves over the course of the season. So I feel good about this game, but that also makes me not feel good because I'm a Commanders fan and I have been trained to, well, be skeptical of this team. But there's a team that I've been trained to have expectations for, and they actually exceeded the expectations. I was starting to kind of put them in the Commanders category of having no expectations, but the Baltimore Ravens came out and they beat the Buffalo Bills. That is not the right color for the Ravens there. Hang on one second. But yeah, they came out and they beat the Bills. That's a little bit better. A little bit. Can we get it a little bit darker? There we go. All right, sweet. I'm saving that color. But they came out and beat the Bills 35-10 in a game that I think was rather surprising to most people. Now, Baltimore did what they usually do. They got out to an early lead, and it looked like they were starting to blow it. But then the Bills, for some reason, decided to run this very strange trick play. This was in the third quarter, and I think most of you guys know what I'm talking about, where Josh Allen rolled out and he went to throw the ball, and it was like there was some confusion, and the defense swarmed him, and the ball got knocked out of his hands and recovered, and he himself got obliterated as part of the play. And that just completely killed any of the Bills' momentum. Baltimore was able to turn around and score, and that was the end of that. So the Ravens beat the Bills 35-10. They've now won back-to-back games and now sit 2-2. Very important divisional game here against the Bengals, the 1-3 Bengals. And also Pittsburgh lost last week, so they went from 1-2 with a 3-0 division leader to now they're 2-2 with a 3-1 division leader. So that's an incredible swing. for them. And this is a good chance for them as well to maybe put away one of their divisional opponents earlier in the season. Now, Cincinnati's been scrapping a little bit the last couple of weeks. They did win last week, which I thought was huge because I would not have wanted to face an 0-4 Bengals team fighting for their life. So that, I think, actually helps them a little bit. But the Ravens, the offense is firing on all cylinders. The defense looked much improved last week. I think they're starting to put some things together there. And the Bengals have just looked a bit disorganized to start the season. So, again, another game I feel good about, but I by no means marking this one as a victory in the book. Most divisional games, especially road divisional games like this one, are 50-50 at best for most teams. So this one definitely falls into that category. But like I said, hey, a win and a win. And, I can't be any happier as a DMV football fan right now, given these last couple results. Let's take a quick look into the college football world here. So, first of all, we had Virginia Tech playing today, and they defeated Stanford 31-7 in a very stout, resounding victory there. That moves them to 3-3 on the season. Big win. We talked about this last week with the team. Were they going to be able to start scraping together some wins after being 2-3? Could they get to 6-6? I think that's still on track. Quarterback Kyron Drones had a very solid game, not an incredible game, but a solid game today, and the defense came out and performed very well. So shout out to Virginia Tech, good win there. And then tell me if you had this one in your bingo card as well. Virginia Tech UVA beat Boston College and is now 4-1 on the season and tied for the ACC lead. Did anybody have this one on their bingo cards? Because I certainly did not. I mean, my goodness. 4-1. They beat Boston College was 4-1 entering this game, and they beat them. Like, the defense has been solid, and sophomore quarterback Anthony Calandria has been playing very good football. So Virginia, hey, look, I'm not saying they're about to turn around and be a ranked team or anything, but they're 2 wins away from a bowl game already, people. We just got to October, and we're already talking about a bowl game for Virginia? I don't know what to say. Great, awesome, go Cavaliers, I guess. Let's see, who do they have coming up here on the schedule? They host Louisville, who I believe just lost today. So Louisville was ranked, but they will not be ranked after that. Then they have Clemson, who's going to keep their ranking because they're beating up on Florida State. Hosting a North Carolina team that has dealt with injuries at a 5-0 Pitt. What is going on with the ACC? Duke and Pitt are 5-0, guys. Duke and Pitt. I don't know. And then they have Notre Dame, a 5-1 SMU team, and of course Virginia Tech, as they traditionally lose. So that schedule gets really tough really quickly. But hey, they beat the 4-1 Boston College, and who knows? Maybe the ACC is full of teams that just beat each other up. I don't know, but hey, I'm not going to complain about Virginia Tech beating Stanford and Virginia beating Boston College. That is a good week. Maryland gets 1 week off from drawing my ire as they were on break, but don't worry, we'll be back to criticize them next week for sure. That'll do it for the football part of our show. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we have to jump into some not football and not baseball sports. I'm going to need to warm up a little bit on this thought because I don't know if I have the capability of doing that right away, but we're going to see if I can turn around and pull this out. So do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph DeLeese, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate die-hard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Yins Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Calise, the User Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans, this is Jen D, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We have entered the final part of our show, which is, of course, my prime time to remind everybody of the show's main message, which is please drink responsibly, do not drink and drive. One of my favorite social media topics or posts regarding this topic is that you can afford an Uber or a taxi before you can afford a DUI. So please drink responsibly, do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. I will not be going anywhere after this, and if you've been drinking, neither should you. So if you're at home, please stay put. Or if you're out and about, watching the college football games, I hope you're not watching the Florida State game right now, watching college football or playoff baseball for those of you who get to still be in it. Anyways, please find a safe method home. Uber, taxi, designated driver, Lyft, Amazon, ship yourself home. I don't care how you do it. Just please do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. We have entered the final part of our show, and we are going to talk about two teams who we have not talked about in some time, but it is fall. And these guys are coming up in the rear view mirror, not in the rear view, in the rear view mirror here. So let's start with the Washington Capitals here. So they are 3-3 in the preseason. Of course, they haven't started regular season play. That actually starts next week, so we'll be able to actually watch some actual real live regular season hockey. The main storyline for the Caps this season is obviously going to be Alex Ovechkin as he continues to chase Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record. He is 42 away. Last season, he only ended up in the 30s, so it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for him to be able to reach it. I'm really under the assumption, based on how I've seen him play the last couple of years, that this is his final season. And when you look at kind of the changing of the guard, right, for the Caps, I mean, we've seen a lot of the players that were on that championship team. Many of them have moved on. Many of them have left in free agency, retired. Obviously, Braden Holtby, the goaltender, he's gone. just this past offseason, we essentially said goodbye to Nicholas Backstrom and TJ Oshie, neither of whom anybody really truly expects to don a Caps uniform again. So really the only two remaining holdovers that we have from that team, you've got Alex Ovechkin and you have John Carlson. Oh, and I think was Tom Wilson on those teams, or was he not quite there yet? Hang on, we can check this really quick. Well, he's 30, so I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Was Tom Wilson on the Caps then? Nope, that's the wrong tab there. He was. Okay, so Tom Wilson, kind of one of the last holdovers. He was one of the young guns on that team. And actually, wait, Nick Dowd too. But yeah, the point still remains the same. Team has changed over much of their squad, and really, like I said, it's the changing of the guard. It's the new generation is going to be leading this, and I think they've already done a good job of acquiring some of those guys this off season. But some of the lingering components will still last. The expectations for this team are not incredibly high. Yes, they did go out and make several acquisitions in the free agent and trade market, but like I said, it's this weird combination of aging guys, which are the young guys ready to take up the mantle, and some established veterans in play. They don't really have, with Ovechkin declining, they don't really have that guy who's like the main playmaker, the main scorer on the team, which is a very key component in hockey, or at least a main line. Like their top line would probably be considered among the weaker in the league. Now, do I think they have really good depth? I personally do. I think the defense is going to be a little bit questionable as they continue to work out where the pieces fall around guys like John Carlson, but also the youngster Rasmus Sandin, the new guys who they brought in, and things like that. And the goaltending situation, you got to throw a little bit of a question mark up. They traded away Darcy Kemper, who was their big acquisition to replace Holtby a couple years ago, but he didn't really pan out with the team. And now they're relying on the veteran journeyman Charlie Lindgren and another, well, not really a veteran, but a younger goalie who's had some playing time in Logan Thompson, plus the possibility of one of their minor league guys like Hunter Shepard, who got some playing time to start the preseason. Maybe he takes a spot. But overall, expectations are kind of mediocre for this team. Could they exceed it? Could they make the playoffs? Sure, they did last year, but this is not exactly shaping up to be a Stanley Cup contender here unless a lot of things go right and go right very quickly. On the other side of DC, and by the other side, I mean in the same stadium as they flip the flooring, we've got the Wizards, who are going to be playing some preseason basketball here coming up. They did announce the projected, at least initial, starting lineups, and they've got Jordan Poole at point guard, which didn't surprise anybody. Poole played his best basketball with the team last year when he was in that point guard spot, so a lot of people expected him, especially given the acquisitions the team made in the offseason and the moves they made to resume his role there. They expect, actually, the starting lineup is really interesting. They have Corey Kispert, kind of wing three-point specialist. He is in the 2 spot starting. Then they have Kyle Kuzma, who's been the power forward, more specifically for the last few years. They have him at the 3, which he's kind of a combo of the 2, so that works. And then rookie Alex Sarr as the starting power forward, and then free agent signee Jonas Valanciunas as the starting center. Now, the way I really expect it to work is I expect the center spot to kind of be its own little isolated group. I expect Valanciunas, I expect Marvin Bagley, and I expect Richaun Holmes to kind of rotate and cover the 48 minutes at that spot. But then I expect the rest of the roster to be kind of mixed and intermingled. Alex Sarr will only play the 4, but Kuzma will play the 3 and the 4, and they'll have Kispert at the 3. They'll have Bilal Koulibaly come off the bench at the 3 and maybe the 2. They'll have Malcolm Brogdon, who can play the 1 and the 2. He'll be off the bench. And then rookie Bub Carrington, who's drawing rave reviews from the coaching staff and his teammates, will likely be the next guy off the bench, with potentially Patrick Baldwin getting some playing time at the 4, and Kaishan George, the other rookie draft pick who they picked later on in the first round, possibly getting some playing time in there as well. Johnny Davis, who was the 10th overall pick a couple of years ago, is not a major factor on the depth chart right now, which is a bit of a concern for him. And then they have a couple of, backup guys like Jared Butler. I'm trying to think of some other names right now. There are a couple other names, obviously, but I've named most of the roster, as you've heard, by naming those guys. But yeah, so you figure, the 7-man group of Cool, Kispert, Kuzma, Sarr, Brogdon, Koulibaly, who, by the way, measured in at 6'8", 205 compared to his rookie numbers of like 6'7", 190. So he put on some good weight and gained another inch of height. So good for him. What was it? Brogdon, Koulibaly, and Carrington. That's group of 7. That's going to cover most of your 1 through 4. And then, like I said, center is going to be its own isolated group. Anthony Gill is also a guy who's probably on the back end of that roster. But, those are your 10 main guys. And then, like I said, Johnny Davis, Jared Butler, Patrick Baldwin, Anthony Gill, those guys, they'll get some playing time mixed in and they'll play in case of injuries. But you figure you're looking at likely right now your main starting group. Now, is that a group that is going to contend for a playoff spot? I don't know if I would make such a bold statement. Honestly, I think the goal might be for them to get as high as possible in the draft lottery to try to get a really good pick in this upcoming class, which has been now stated as one of the best draft classes in the past 20 years, was the statement I saw the other day. So I don't know if the goal with this team is to really contend, but I think the goal might be to display some of these veterans and their playing so that they could possibly flip them at the deadline. Names on that list would be Kuzma, Poole, Brogdon, Bagley, Holmes, Valanciunas. Any of those guys could be on that list. And get some of the young guys playing time, guys like Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, and Kaishan George. Sadiq Bey, who they signed, will likely not factor in right away because he'll start the season kind of banged up. But overall, yeah, is this a team that's going to contend for the playoffs? No, but I also don't think that is their goal. I think their goal is to try their hardest, but then add a main piece from the draft class in 2025. I'm just checking the list real quick to see if I missed a major name. No. Sweet. That was a good job on my part. All right. That will do it for tonight's show. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to everybody who listened live. Thank you, Gen V. Of course, go Guards, as our Cleveland fan. Yep, absolutely, 100%. Thank you to everybody who listened live, and thank you to everybody who will listen later on in the week. If you have not done so, please follow us on all social media platforms. Check out your boy, Let's Wine _ISR on X, Instagram, and TikTok at that one. You can listen to us at all of these options below. You can definitely check out our website with all of the different things you can do there with the shop, the show pages, the blog, also our Fan of the Month page as well. Shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky. It is really, truly a jerky that is on a whole nother planet. And of course, shout out to Seal the Deal Wax Seals. And last but not least, of course, please remember as well, please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Mike Patt for Let's Wine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.